In this video, we're doing something different. We're not talking about DIY engineering in regards to CNC milling multi-operational parts or ATC spindles and tool racks. We're just not. Talking about holiday technology. Everybody's got to be out decorating their house in the next couple weeks to prepare for the holidays and to cherish and enjoy the holidays with their friends, family, and community.
Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
For that, you're going to need technology. Every year, we use a different type of technology to decorate our homes. And the cool kid always has the coolest technology. You know, I've done static lighting, LED lighting, RGB lighting, computer-controlled multi-channel home displays with DMX stage equipment, lasers. I haven't done fire yet. We're not doing that either this year. This year, we're doing video projection mapping. You know, all these other technologies, you got to have ladders out, you got to string your lights and your DMX cables and your power lines and everything. Video projection mapping, one power cord to the video projector, and then you configure, calibrate, and set it up, and you get some of the best overlays that you can expect to get for a holiday. And you're really going to impress your neighbors and community. So that's my theory, at least. So stick around. We're going to look at the Luxedo version 2 video projection system. So video projection mapping, it sounds a little scary. It sounds expensive and high tech. You've seen it at theme parks and trade shows and probably other places, malls. Does anybody still go to the mall? Probably not. But you've seen it at these other places, haunted houses. They create stunning effects when you project video onto three-dimensional surfaces. Well, that's all that's really going on here. And you can go out and get your own open source technology, software, buy your own video projector and mash it up yourself and say that you accomplished that, but you'll save a lot of time and money with some turnkey consumer-based solutions. Now, Luxedo is like one of the only players in the game. They make it with their cloud-based online software. You can use an iPad and drag and drop with your finger to create your own video animations and overlays, and then it'll automatically schedule and push them to their projectors, and you project it onto your house. It looks pretty amazing. And you'll see in this video the results that you can expect from that and how easy it really is. Now, if you do it yourself, it's going to be more complicated. And I just don't even want to cover that, because the people that are smart enough to do that are going to probably have the money to do that. And if you have the money to do that and the time to do that, then you can go waste 3 to 6 months creating the perfect solution. And that's what most corporate enterprises and industrial environments do. They have the deep pockets to buy all of the perfect technology, but we all can't afford that. And so for us, there's the Luxedo. So check it out. There's lots of options. Not that the Luxedo is a cheap solution. It's not inexpensive, but it is easy, and it's been simplified for a specific purpose of holiday decorations. So we're going to dig into the hardware and the software, pull it all together, show you how quick and painless it can be. So for that, let's first dive into their website, luxedo.com. All right, over on luxedo.com, they have a nice little website here. And if you look at their products, specifically click on the Luxedo projection system, this is what we're going to be looking at today. When you think of video projection mapping in a turnkey solution, this is what it looks like from Luxedo's perspective. Last year we looked at the version 1 video projection system, which was a little bit different in that it was plastic, it was hermetically sealed, it was a proprietary projection light engine, and so it didn't really look much like this. This version 2 system looks a little bit different. It's made out of metal. It looks to have a short throw projector inside there. And as we look at their product line, that's exactly what they've done. They've really modularized their system such that you can change out the components to get exactly what you need for your house. Now, you could buy one or multiple of these projection systems and link them all together and sequence them all simultaneously if you have a really large area, or you can just buy a single one, create the animations, and project it. The benefit of having this modular system is that depending on which version you buy, you can buy a different version of the projector with higher lumens, brighter if you live in an urban area, or dimmer if you're in a more rural area to where the projector can have a darker projection space, and just really based on your needs to customize. Now this system automatically has some of their other components already baked into it. This is a turnkey solution. You get everything you need. But if you want to roll your own or build your own, you can go with just the Lux Omni. And the Omni is really the steel enclosure. It's got the webcam there to allow you to calibrate it with whatever video projector you put in there. But really, you're just getting a weatherproof enclosure with a power supply and a webcam, and a link to their software that allows you to use any projector that you want. So if you have really specific needs, then you can buy their enclosure, put your projector in there, and go with that. If you don't need the waterproof enclosure, and maybe you just want to use their software, you like their software and the scheduling capabilities, I can just buy this Luxcast, plug it into my video projector, and then use their software and scheduling and all of those other great features for my indoor display, whatever it may be. It could be in a retail environment, you don't know. So that said, the Luxcast is a link to their Lux Link, and allows you to plug in your own projector in your own environment. Maybe it doesn't need to be outdoor and weatherproofed. LuxLink is really their cloud-based software. So you can run it on your computer in a Chrome browser, and you can create all those layers and animations to create the show and experience that you want it to be. It'll calibrate your projector. It'll allow you to use that as a design surface and add animations and features that will be projected onto your surface or your show area. Now, if you buy this by itself, it's $99 a month. But if you buy the projection system, then it comes with it. So when you factor all prices considered, the Luxito projection system is a value because it comes with the Lux Link, Luxcast, Lux Omni, all in one, and you get a custom turnkey solution. With this one solution will be all you really need to decorate your entire house, your entire business, or anything else that you want to do video projection mapping on. That said, in a nutshell, those are the 4 aspects of the Luxito product line, their product portfolio, if you will. So let's dive into the Luxito projection system and start opening the box, look at what the hardware looks like and what we need to do to bring it together and use it in our environment. All right, here we have the Luxito video projection system. So inside the waterproof enclosure, which is referred to as the Lux Omni, we've got a few things. We've got an RF antenna, an HDMI connector, some basic setup instructions, and a sticker that I guess you can put on the inside or the outside. In addition to the enclosure, we have the Optima ZH406STX. Now this is a 4200 ANSI lumen projector, 1080p resolution using laser DLP technology. It's got a 300,000 to 1 contrast ratio, which sounds pretty high. The 16:9 aspect ratio, and a very short throw, 0.5 short throw lens. So just the basics. This is a stock machine. It's been touted and won the Best of the Year award 2020. Taking off the protective cover on the lens there, and then around the top it's got your standard menu adjustments. On the rear it's got 2 HDMI inputs, a USB, and additional inputs there. Nothing special about it. It's pretty small form factor. Now to complete the package, we have to install the projector inside the waterproof enclosure. Inside the enclosure, it's got the Luxcast and a power supply for the projector. And it's just a matter of setting this up and moving it as far forward as you can to get up against that glass, a protective glass. And just to make sure that it's all the way up there so that there's no clipping that will occur with the projection. It's just a matter of powering it up, connecting it to the internal power supply that's provided inside the Lux Omni enclosure. Here I was trying to route the wires, which I ended up needing to undo because you kind of need the length in the cable. So here I plug in HDMI 1, and then the opposite, which is the micro HDMI connector, goes up to where the power supply is as well. And that's where the LuxCast is sort of built into that power supply. So Luxomni is sort of a all-in-one capable device. You plug in the HDMI and the power for the projector, then just make sure those power cables are not bound, and we just clasp it together. All right, so this is the Luxedo Video Projection System 2. We got the Lux Omni steel enclosure, powder coated. The only thing my immediate thought is it'd been nice if it's green or black to hide into my display. You could obviously spray paint this and make it that way, and then it won't stand out so much if you're putting it in an area to where gray is going to contrast with it. That said, if you remember last year, I used a stand, and the thing with these short throw projectors is they're never going to go any lower than the ground level, so the bottom of the frame is going to be at ground level. In my particular case, my house is on a slope, or at least the front lawn slopes up to the house, and so as a result, when I put this on the lawn, it's gonna, the bottom of the frame of the video projection is gonna be about 4 feet up from the ground on my house. So to compensate for that, I'll need to tilt this, and the stand that I created last year will tilt this to tilt that video projection frame downward a little bit to give better coverage on my house. Now, this thing has a massive throw, and at about 25 to 30 feet, I'm able to cover my 60-foot wide house and up to 50 feet high, and it still has additional throw over that. If you need to increase it, you can back it off a little bit more. You can probably go up to 30-40 feet just depending on the lighting conditions of your environment. Obviously, it has a bigger footprint than the Luxedo video projector version 1, which was only about this wide. We need to increase the size of that platform and then get this mounted on there. So to do that, let's set this aside and make those modifications. All right, so this is the old setup. It may look familiar to you. This had the hinge on the front, and then we had the brackets. This is how it would tilt. The legs on the new model exceed the width, so I had to make a different top. We'll remove this hinged section, and we've got some longer brackets that will go on the side here. And these are just a custom design that I came up with. It's like a ladder lift, I guess. I don't know. Basically, it lifts and allows adjustable slide to increase and modify the angle of this top plate. Let's dive in and get that new top set up. All right. So this is the new wider top board. It's just a matter of screwing in this top plate, get that taken care of, and move on. All right, so with the updated mount here, we've got the projector mounted with 4 quarter 20 screws into the feet here on each corner. We've got a hinge across the front. And then we've got these ladder, I don't know what they are, ladder ratchet thingamajigs that I designed on the side here. And this will allow me to adjust the height. Now, there's one on each side to carry the load. When it's set at the appropriate height, it just holds it at the perfect angle. The reason why I'm using the crate, as I mentioned last year, is it doesn't kill the grass, allows the grass to grow around it. And then I have some U-bolts that I'll put into, or U-bolt anchors that I'll put into the grass that will hold this secure. Now you may be wondering, you know, how easy is it to steal this thing, as it's pretty costly, and there's an investment, technical investment. You don't want somebody just walking off with it. There's a few options. Now if we spin this around, you can see the backside. There's a security anchor here, so you can put like a leash, a lock, but it's still going to be subject to what you're locking it to. So if you don't have a tree or something that this can go around, that your leash can go around, then your best bet is, there's a couple options. You could go on Amazon, as I've done. You get a battery-powered motorcycle alarm, and that will detect motion, so that if anybody moves this, it's going to scream. They're only like 25, 30 bucks. They have remote controls on them. They're pretty nice. That's one option. You could also put an AirTag, an Apple AirTag on the bottom of this, which would then at least give you some traceability in the critical hours after it comes up missing. I think Apple would even notify you on your, if you have an iPhone, that the item is no longer in your proximity, things like that. It makes it easy to assist authorities in relocating your investment. But those are a couple options that I've used. And obviously, if you're watching this video and you come by, and you can try to circumvent those. But, I think that's about as good as you can get. I mean, these things are an investment, and it is in your front yard. And if you can obscure it with some of your other decorations like cutouts and whatnot, then that's a good rule of thumb to sort of minimize the ease of being able to just this thing to grow legs. All right, that said, let's get it in the yard and start talking about setting it up and configuring it and positioning it in the yard. Okay, so in the yard, I place this right directly on my grass at the correct angle and prepare it for sort of sighting in, at the right distance. Back in Luxedo, I go to register the device, and here's where you enter the name of your device, the device ID, and the default password. And this is what will allow Luxedo's server to communicate with that projector. Next, I select the projector and the desired resolution, and then we're ready to calibrate the device. So calibrating the device is the process of making sure that you're at the right distance, you have the right coverage, and you can turn on a light that will allow you to determine whether or not you're getting full coverage. And here you can adjust it by turning on the projection. The actual calibration is going to put a series of vertical and horizontal stripes, and it takes up to 21 different photos of your projection environment. And the purpose of this is to calibrate the camera that's inside the Luxomni with the projector. And between the two, it draws a correlation and gives you a snapshot that you'll be able to use to design your animations and your overlay with. Once the pictures have been taken, then it creates a calibration map, and then it presents you with that and completes the process. All right, now over in the Luxedo portal is where we can do all of our online work to register our projection systems. We can schedule light shows, we can create animations or scenes, and we're going to run through the organization of all that capability so that you can kind of get your bearings. Initially, when you land on this page and you log in, it looks like this. On your left-hand side, you have scenes, which are basically animations. If you want to do different scenes or different animations, which you typically would, then you create those here. By clicking on that, you can organize them into folders or however you like. In my case, I've got them separated out by the year and then the holiday. If we look at the different holidays, I've got several designs in here that I've worked on. But just know that there's a couple different ways that you can produce these animations. Light shows are where you would combine multiple videos to create your light show, if you will. Now, light show is typically going to be like the different types of scenes that you want to play for 4 hours every evening, or whenever it is you want to play it. The light show is going to allow you to determine the sequence of those scenes and whether there's delays in between them and how they repeat and all that fun stuff. That aside, let's close this down. After light shows, we have media library. So any of the animations, whether it's a GIF or a JPEG or a PNG or a MP4 or a video that you got off of YouTube or whatever it is, or video animation that you created yourself, you need to upload them to their cloud in order to be able to use them in the scenes that you design on their website. You can find a lot of these patterns on YouTube, whether it's falling snow or falling leaves or just animated green screen backgrounds, or just like a peppermint GIF or a snowman cookie or Santa in a window or whatever you want. And you can combine all of these in different ways to create your scenes and make them as custom as you want them to be. After media library are the projectors. These are the projectors that are currently registered. And if you click on them, you can check out the capabilities of the device. You can sync it with other projectors, change the settings, check whether or not the Wi-Fi status, and find out more about the specific device ID and information like that. Specifically, you can create groups. For example, we have this house, and the house is combining a Luxedo V1 and V2, and you can move them around to determine where the overlap is, if there's any, and how those different projectors will be used in your setup. If you have multiple projectors, you can continue to add them across your property, and you can pull them all together so that when you're creating your scene or your light show, then all of the projections that are synchronized together will be displayed in the same background. So it allows you to coordinate movement of animations and graphics, and make it really easy to do. It's pretty comprehensive. And this is a new feature that they've added recently. So really cool stuff. All right, so let's talk about scene editing in the Luxedo interface. If we go to My Scenes, it's going to show us the folders and files that I've created already. Now you see I've got a couple to organize my work, 22, and I've got different holidays, going to Christmas. You can see I've got a bunch uploaded. Now I'm going to show you two different ways to create scenes. You can use their Luxedo scene editor, which is really straightforward, but may be a little limited. And for advanced folks, I'll show you how you can use Adobe Premiere and generate your animations outside of the Luxedo environment. So first, let's get started with creating one using the Luxedo scene editor. To do that, we just click New Scene. We're going to call this Test Scene. Then we select which projector we're going to be creating the scene for. That's important because the resolution of that projector or that combination of projectors is what's going to determine your display area. You can also, if you don't want to just select a discrete projector, you can select this multiple projectors, and you can see we've created one called House that has both projectors in there. And we're not going to do that. This time we'll just create it for the V2. But just know that you have that option. Now the advanced option is whether or not you're going to use the Luxedo scene editor or whether you're going to use your own video editor. And I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. For now, let's leave this unchecked. We click Create, and the scene editor is loaded with our previous snapshot to use as the background. It's a smart background, so you don't have to worry that it doesn't look perfect. It's really just used to determine where you want to put your projection items on the house. And when this is rendered and projected out of the Luxedo projection system, this smart background won't be there. But if it bothers you, you can clean it up. There's a couple different ways that you can do that. You can either create an object to conceal this, or we can go up here, go to Smart Background, and you can clear the background. If you clear the background, the problem is you don't know where you're putting the elements. And if all you want to do is say just project a video across your house, then you can certainly do that. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to enable that smart background because that shows me what the projector sees and how it's going to project onto the house. So now that I've selected that, let's talk about some of the basic layout of the scene editor. On the left-hand side, we have layers. And you can think of layers of how you're going to build up your design. It gives you by default an audio layer and a layer 0. And as you add media elements onto it, the media elements will be added to the layer that's selected. Now you can select different layers if you add them, but for now we just have one. It's important to note that the top layer gets top priority, so that if I put a large square on the top layer, then nothing will be able to be seen underneath that layer or that large square. And we'll get to those complexities a little bit later. Across the top are the tools. The first is your user content. And over on the right hand side, you can see the 3 albums that I had in my media. And if you click into those folders, then you can see the individual items. You can even go as far as to say, let's say I want to remove the background from this. If you right click, you can edit and remove the background and do all sorts of neat stuff. And this will allow me to modify and manipulate that media and test it out before I actually use it in my scene. In addition to your media, you can also look at public media. And this is all of the clip art and graphics that Luxedo is kind enough to include. And these give you quick things like text or icons or holiday or seasonal festive type decorations that you can add to your house. And we'll add a few of these later. The next item on the tool list is text and shapes. This allows you to create shapes, as in circles, squares, triangles, or polygons, and then you can fill them with a particular color. Those can be creative elements on your design. Paths are for creating motion paths so that you can move things around on your display to animate them if you like. You don't have to use all of these things, but they're there to give you some added complexity and advanced capability in this scene editor. In addition to moving objects around, you can also add effects, and those are things like rotation or grow, scale, or to fade in or out, or things like that. So you can create some neat animations. They're pretty straightforward and vector driven, and we might get into a couple of those things. One of the most important tools to know how to use is the mask tool. And mask will allow you to block out certain areas of your design. You can exclude everything except for the garage door if you like. You can mask out the window if you're just going to have Santa Claus in the window and you don't want it to bleed over into other areas. So masks give you a lot of flexibility, and we'll see how we can layer the effects and graphics to create some neat effects with neat designs and animations with these layers and masks. Audio is your Luxedo broadcast sound system, or Luxedo radio. Now what this will do is give you a code that'll allow people that are watching your display to go to a link on a website, and it'll stream the audio for the display and animations through their cell phones or PCs or whatever else they're using. Really cool. The gear here is scene configuration details, and these are just basic things like how long is the scene, and you can add some modifiers like brightness, and enabling brightness will increase the contrast of your design to give it more punch. If you hover over the projector, you can look at the projector settings, choose the snapshot, or even schedule the scene itself. To the right of that, you can save, and then to the right of that, you can render and preview on the actual projector when you're ready to do so. Now, the bottom section of the scene editor gives you an exploded view of and timeline for each of the layers. So if you have when you have items on your layers, you can expand them and see the duration of each of the graphic elements and manipulate it. So let's get started. So for now, we have layer 0. We can rename that, right click, and call it top layer. If we click on the My Media, open up some objects, and then pull this garland tunnel. Now you can see the garland tunnel is added. Now I can put this wherever I want. A few different options. Now when it's selected, you see the handles around it, which will allow me to drag it in different directions. On the right hand side here, you see there's an edit mode. This is the simple edit mode handles, which are showing you the very specific ways that this can be scaled proportionally or stretched non-proportionally. In addition to the simple edit mode, you can hit skew. That will allow you to add perspective to these elements. So for example, if you wanted to place this on your garage door and you wanted it to be the exact dimensions of the door, the easiest way is just to use scale. Scale your object to match the perspective of the door. So now it'll play that on the door. If you hit play, then you can watch the video render back in a slow frame rate to give you an idea of what that would look like. That's the easiest way to do that. Alternatively, you could do something as simple as sticking with simple mode and just scaling this object up to cover your whole house. Now granted, it's larger than the house, but it would still look cool if you were to play this back on your entire house. Most people want to do something more complex than this, and I'll show you how to do that. So for now, let's leave this and save it. So now we have this large graphic element that's playing over the entire house. Let's say we only wanted to play that on, let's say, the body of the house, all the dark gray areas in this case. To do that, we can create a mask. So if we go to masks, select new mask, and then select some of these objects like the square, we can take that square and let's say it'll mask out the garage door here first. And because we're using polygon, that allows me to just drag and drop that to give it the right perspective and cover up that garage door. Now that's a simple mask. We can call it garage door. Now a mask needs to be applied to a layer. So in this case, since the video is on the top layer, I can just say top layer and save it. Now that garage door is masked, and if we make that layer visible, you can see that that large graphic element that I had covered the house with is only displayed through that masked area. That simplifies it. So I can do the same for the rest of the house. Let's add another mask to do some of the roof, like a triangle. For the triangle, we'll just put that up here. We'll call this garage peak. Select the layer and save. So now you can see it's exposing more of that image that I had covering the entire house. The cool part about this is it's only going to project in those areas. The rest of the house will not include any projection. Let's continue this process. But now we have some weird shapes, and some of these are going to get a little bit more complicated. So let's just use the poly or trace tool. Now we're going to need to zoom in a little bit. We'll start over in this corner. Select these objects. Now I'm just defining the area that I want to mask out. When I'm happy with the results, I just finish the area, and now I've got this awkward shape that is exactly what I need it to be. And you can go back and adjust the nodes to compensate them however you need to do that. You can even add additional nodes by clicking in the handles in the blank areas, and it'll add additional nodes. Really easy to use. Let's call this entry. We'll associate it to the top layer again and save it. You can see that this is further exposing different area of the map. If you right click, you can drag your scene area around. Alternatively, you could use your mouse wheel to scroll out and then use your mouse wheel again to scroll into a different area. So right clicking is your friend. Let's create another mask, finish this off. I'm going to do trace. Now the accuracy of this is going to be critical depending on how you've got your projector sitting on the lawn. So when you go out to test this, you're going to have to double check that your projector is aligned with your house as it was when you calibrated it. So if you move your projector around, you're going to always want to recenter it and align it to the house to make sure that all these tight tolerances line up with the trim in this case. Let's call this center peak. Select top layer, save. We're getting closer. A new mask, triangle. Zoom out a little bit. We'll just use this quick triangle. So the primitives are helpful in that you don't always have to use trace. You can just grab a quick primitive and mask out an area without having to use the polygon tool, and that's up to you. and that's just your preference. We'll select top layer again and save. The last piece is one more polygon. So let's select trace. We'll fill this in. Now I'm not projecting on my bushes, so this is helping me to, eliminate some interference that if I were to project on the bush, it would cause. Now, we'll call this right side. And we're done. Now, see how cool that is? That is actually playing that same video that we scaled to cover the entire house, but now it's masked through those regions. So if I play it back, you can see that the animation is the same, but it's playing on all of those specific areas of the body of the house. Now, the other cool part is I can select that specific video by clicking on the timeline and selecting that object. Now that that object is selected, you can scroll out and you can see the handles for it here. It's still full size. So if I go into simple sizing mode, you can see the bounding box of that. Now I can change the aspect ratio of that video that's being masked out on the entire body. I can even move it around, and you can see it move all within the mask that I've created on the house. Now let's say I wanted to also project something different on the trim of the house. Let me save this first. So that's going to be saved the way it is. Let's say I wanted to do these candy stripes on the house. For that, let's create another layer first. Let's call that Full House. This is going to be tricky. So on the Full House layer, with it selected and the little gold bar here next to it, let's drag and drop that red and white onto the video. Now this is telling me that the video is longer than my current scene length, and it's going to extend the length of the scene to match the video. That's fine. So once I do that, you can see that the Full House video that I just dropped on there is actually showing up behind all of the other objects. And that's because the top layer is on top of it. So this is really showing up behind all of those masked areas in the top layer. Make sense? So let's say I wanted to put this candy stripe on all of the trim. Now you could do something as easy as that and just render it and it would project it on the trim. The problem is it's also going to do it on the windows and everywhere else around the house. So if we save this for now, let's call this candy stripes. Let's create another mask that constrains this or masks it to the outline of the house. And to make it a little easier, let's first hide this. Now let's create a mask here. And this mask is going to block out everything outside of the shape of the house. And to do that, we'll just start over in this corner. We'll select trace first because this is going to be a polygon shape. We're just going to go around the house. Now you don't have to go very tight. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now to move this around while I'm drawing this polygon, just use your right mouse button to grab and move the canvas. Now if you give yourself some tolerance around this, then you'll it won't have to be as precise when you're projecting on it because it'll give you some wiggle room. Now this is a little distorted over here, but it's not a problem. We can just correct that here and just kind of give it some tolerance again. Now, I have a choice here. I can also mask out these windows at the same time, which may be useful, so let's do that. So as I'm masking out the house, I'm not including the windows, and what that's going to do is give me a neat effect, it's going to leave an opening there where I'll be able to put animations in the windows. So let's go up here and also mask it out here. Now keep in mind that this mask is going to cover the entire house. We're going to go over here and then finish it up right there. Now to edit that, because I think I goofed up a little bit here, we can just click on polygon and then edit where I put those points at. This allows me to clean up any mistakes I may have had. We'll call this house. And for the layer, this time we're going to select full house. If we save that and re-enable the layer full house, then we can see all those candy cane lines are now constrained to the inside of the house. And since we have this top layer that was previously designed floating on top of it, it cuts out the body. Now if we were to play this, you would see the effect that the red lines are moving and the green is also moving on two different layers, and they're masked out differently. And that's really cool. Now you can continue this process and add other elements. And you can see here that the video, or actually the audio is being displayed here. You can see here that the video for the top layer is shorter than the video for the candy stripes. You can extend that out. Say you wanted to make it the full length. And you'll notice the breaks here. Because that video was shorter, it's going to repeat that video, in this case, 4 times, 4 and then some, to make it last the full length. But it'll be seamless. There'll be no transition. So now you could continue to manipulate and edit this. Let's add a couple graphic elements. Let's say some candy in the corner. So we'll go to Christmas, peppermints. So let's add another layer for that. And for that, we're going to add something. We'll call it candy layer. Right click, rename candy. And now because I want this to be on top of everything, let's drag this layer all the way to the top. Select that layer so that anything I drop is going to be on top of that. It's going to be on top of the other 2 layers, the top layer and the full house. So let's drag a peppermint out there. See, this thing is pretty big. So let's select it, go to simple mode, and reduce the size of it. Then I can drag and put that on the corner there, save it. I can continue to do that to add other accents and elements. And keep in mind that these are all going to be added to the layer that's currently selected. And if you, like, for example, when I was clicking here, you see that the selection isn't what I want it to be. I'm trying to get the candy, but because those objects are bigger, it's automatically selecting that. So an easy way to select the item that you want is just go down here to the layer, the candy layer, and then you can select on the individual elements, and it'll select or give you the bounding box around those. So I can create another one of these, put it over here. Let's do one more. Select that object, reduce the size, move it around. Now, in addition to that, let's add one more. This is so much fun. Your kids can help with this. Your family can help with this. They can create their own scenes. So it's really a neat process. Again, just go down here and select the topmost object in the layer. This is something you have fun with. Now in this case, you see it's wider than it is tall, and so you start to notice that it's not aligned. And if we adjust that, we can just rotate it, put it exactly where we want. Now these are going to be floating all on top of the other layers. So if there's video playing, like the red stripes are moving and the garland's moving, these will be static. So they're kind of like ornaments that you're putting on top of the other layers that will still be part of the projection. That's really cool. You go down here, select one more of these candy items. Let's rotate it for the vertical column. And you can just design this to your heart's content, you know, whatever you're trying to accomplish. Be creative, make something cool. And when you're done, this is ready to be rendered. You know, you can continue to edit and add whatever you want it to include, but this would be good to go exactly the way it is. And to prepare this for the projector, all I have to do is, first you want to save it, of course. Then you can go over here and render it. Or you can also preview on the device immediately. And so what that's going to do is allow you to render it before previewing. Of course, you want to do that or else you won't be able to see any video. And then we can use the turbo render, which is a new feature of the scene compiler. Turbo render is going to take all of those layers and all those masks and all that graphics and render it into a final video that's going to be played on the projector. Now this can take anywhere from 20 seconds to a minute and a half. The turbo render has really accelerated this process. Previously it would take 5 to 10 minutes. In this case you can see it's going to take less than 1 minute. And it's giving you a preview of the render that's occurring and how nice the graphics look. Now this is a 1080p display. You can also see that the smart background's been removed automatically. So we don't have to worry about the complexities of removing that ourselves. It'll automatically take out that smart background. Right now it's rendering the video. Now it's only going to show you every 100 frames or so. It's not going to show you the full resolution of the video until it plays it back. Let's let this finish up. All right, the render is complete. Now if we click next, we can select the projector. Since this was designed for the V2 projector, we'll leave it at that, and we click preview. Now in this case, my projector is not online, so it's unable to complete it. But what would normally happen is this would be sent directly to the projector if I had my projector out there plugged in and ready to go. And this would play for the next 10 minutes on the projector just to give me a chance to see what it looks like. So typically you obviously want to run these previews in the environment that is appropriate for your display. So if it's sunset or dark, so you want to wait till it's dark out or your conditions are So after you render and preview the scene, it'll play on your projector for 10 minutes and give you an opportunity to go out and see what it looks like in your display area. That's great, right? So this is relatively easy. I covered some of the more complicated aspects of masking and layering, and you can just continue to add and evolve and develop your scenes into exactly what you want. And when you're happy with them, you can go up here and schedule it specifically, or you can wait and schedule a light show, which is what we'll cover a little bit later. This would represent the basic capabilities that you can expect from the Luxedo Cloud Scene Editor. Now let's go back and show you how I prefer to do it, which is a little bit more complicated, a little bit more advanced, but you can use any video editing software that you're familiar with to do the same thing. And Luxedo is set up to accommodate that. So let's go back and then create a new scene. We'll call it external test. Select your projector, and in this case, you can see we're clicking the advanced option to create edit scene with third-party video editor. Click create. Now this is a little bit different than using the scene editor because it's giving you this 4-page wizard that'll walk you through the steps required to do that. First, it's going to give you a snapshot. It's going to give you the opportunity to download that snapshot. And for me, you download the snapshot. That's going to give you a JPEG image of this background, this smart background. You would click next. It's going to tell you some specifics that Whatever video editor you use, be sure that it's the same resolution as your background, in this case 1920 by 1080. And in the project, make sure that you cover all the spaces, and then ultimately when you render your project in your software editor, that you want to remove the background so it's not part of the video projection. Those are all the basics. Now it's just waiting for me to perform that work. And so what I do is I take this external video editor. In this case, you can look at the snapshot, which isn't that great. Now, my video editor of choice is Adobe Premiere, and this doesn't give me much to work with in terms of using it as a mask, and masking in Premiere isn't the best. So if you know other tools that have better masking, maybe After Effects or something like that, then you can use those capabilities in those systems. But for me, I'm going to clean up this image because I'll use this for masking my video in Adobe Premiere. And the way I do that is take that first into Adobe Illustrator, which is a vector environment, and that's going to allow me to trace the background and then get some really crisp edges. And so you can see here, I've already sort of masked out the area outside of the house that I don't want to project, and it's got a crisp edge, but the trim and the body and the windows still aren't clean enough to actually use. And so I went ahead and created additional masks on those objects that will isolate and give me crisp edges very discreetly, covering just these sections of trim. And with these objects, I can use them in Adobe Premiere to mask out the videos. So you can see here, I've got the trim area, I've got the windows, and I've got the body of the house. Now this is so simplified and so crisp, I can use these as color key masks in Premiere. So let's hop over in Premiere and look at that. So the way that I use those masks is by creating these sub sequences. So I've got a main composition, and I've got 5 layers of sub sequences. And we have one that's called all, which obviously is going to display the entire house. I can show you what that looks like by selecting the image, selecting the effects controls, and disabling the color key. So this is the mask I'm using if I want to project something on the entire house. I use a color key to allow things to be masked by this image. And what that does is it allows me to stack up images beneath it. In this case, I've got this pixie dust that repeats itself from different angles to create this overlay of sort of magic and sparkle that just adds to everything else that's going to be on my house. And you can see it's all constrained, still constrained inside the mask of the entire house. So for this particular example, this is the topmost layer. This is going to be added to anything else I put under it, and that's called the all mask. It's not really a mask per se, as much as it's a subsequence that has a color key to constrain that effect. I also have a layer for windows. In this particular scene or sequence that I'm creating, it doesn't have anything in it, but you can see it would just mask out the areas for the windows and the front door. Back at the main composition, we can look at trim. Trim is similar to what I did in the scene that we created in Luxedo, and I'll show you how I did it in Premiere. I've got a trim mask using the color key, and if we disable that, you can see it's just a white image that was exported from my Adobe Illustrator. I use that with a white color key to mask out the videos beneath it. In this case, we're just using the same red stripes. I've added a filter on these red stripes to enhance them with color correction, increasing the saturation and contrast to give it more punch and make it a little brighter. But that's all this is doing, is just creating that moving red and white. Back at the color comp, or the main comp, we can look at the body layer. And that's, again, doing the same thing. The only difference is you can see the extra detail that I've added in the masking, and that was done with the color key that I was able to export from Adobe Illustrator and get really sharp edges. Now you could also take your time and do this in Luxedo, but I just find it faster and more tedious, or I guess able to make more complex shapes using Adobe Illustrator in the vector design aspects of it, and then use that as a mask. For me, that just works better. I'm just more fluent in these tools. So that mask, if we enable it, then the underlying layers, which in this case is just the tunnel garland, you can see the previews are a little bit quicker. It doesn't have to wait for the cloud-based app, and they can't really compete with these Adobe products, and they're not trying to. But the ways that the effects and layering that you can do in an external video editor is more complex, but it's also more capable. Just keep that in mind. So you can see this video layer, and if we go back to the main composition, all of these layers are stacked on top of each other. Now, just like in the Luxedo environment, these would stomp on each other, meaning that they wouldn't, the top one would cover the bottom one, and so on and so forth. And so to circumvent that, each of these layers in my layout have been set to the blend mode of screen, which is going to overlay them on top of each other. Now that will allow each of them to be able to be displayed and animated on top of each other because they're just kind of all screened together. Now, in addition to those composition layers, I will add a transition, and in this case I have this crackle effect. Now if we double click on that, you can see the crackle effect is really just a black and white image that crumbles together and then crumbles apart. Pretty cool little effect. And the way that I use that in my display is to set the effect settings for it to be darken. And so when I darken the rest of those layers, you can see that it's a slow crackle reveal of the effect that's underlying. I do the same thing at the end. So if we scroll to the end, you can see that that's how it dissolves away. Is you'll have a reverse crackle effect, which makes it crumble downward. Cool. So this layout with all of these composition layers is what I used as a template in Premiere to create multiple variations, and we'll go through all of those in just a second. So let's hop over back into Luxedo, and we'll walk through the steps of once I've completed my video in Premiere or your video editor of choice. You would go back into Luxedo. Now it's waiting for me to drop the file. So in this case, let's upload our file that was generated from Premiere, and we just click the upload button. Now the upload button is going to first and foremost upload the video to the Luxedo server, and it needs to do that to be able to render the video, convert it to the right codec, and be able to push it down to your projector. So the scheduling and the automation of all that is all handled by Luxedo. It's really easy to use their online interface to do that. And part of this rendering process is to just prepare it so that when you're ready to schedule your show and your scenes, that it's just a non-issue. It's a very configuration-driven environment. And we'll go through that a little bit later. So once the upload for the video completes, then it's time for it to render it, and that will take a little bit more time. We'll speed this up and come back to it when it completes. Okay, so now that the rendering is completed and it's been uploaded to their server, you can actually preview it right here and see what it looks like. Now this is going to be the actual video that's displayed on your machine. You can tell the video quality and the rendering looks awesome. It looks exactly as I expected. It's got a lot of punch and everything. So I'm anxious to actually create these scenes and get them on the projector. Now you can immediately play the scene by clicking play scene. That's going to allow you to select a specific show or scene and immediately play it. click on scenes. That's going to show you all of the scenes that I've created. I can select an individual scene to play, or I can click on light shows. We'll talk about creating this light show in a few minutes. Now with this create and upload wizard completed, we can just close out. And so you can see working in the internal or Luxedo scene editor is easy to do online. You can do it on an iPad, you can drag and drop with your finger, or you can do it on a computer and do some fairly complex scenes. Or optionally, like we just walked through with Adobe Premiere and Adobe Illustrator, you can export it, do it all in your own personal video editor, and then re-import the video and get the same results. The only downside is that I can't ever edit this online if I've created as an external video. If you click on it, you're really only going to have the options to upload a new version. There's not much else that you can do. But if you're already developing this in your own video editing software, that should be perfectly fine. All right, let's move on. Okay, back over in Luxedo. Now that we've generated the video for all of the scenes that I created in Adobe Premiere, I've imported them as scenes. So you can see all the different scenes that we went over with in the Premiere layout, and they're all ready to go. So in order to use those, we can schedule them individually, but it's much easier if you use their light show feature. So if we go over to My Light Shows, that allows me to set up a sequence of scenes that I want to play. And it'll play all these scenes sequentially, and I can click on them and display them to see, to confirm that they look the way I expect them to. I exported them from Premiere so I know they're exactly the way I designed them. So you can skip around, you can see what these different scenes look like. And that's going to give you an idea or a concept of the final rendering. You can also insert breaks or delays in between these and sequence them however you want. And once you're happy with it, then you just ultimately need to render it by clicking the render button. Now, depending on how many scenes you have as a part of this light show, it can take a significant amount of time to render them. So let's let the light show complete, and then we'll come back to it when it's ready to schedule. And once the render is complete, we can just close the light show configuration. Now when we're ready to schedule that, we go up to schedule the light show. Now if we scroll down, we can see I've got a standing scheduled item. If we click on that, you can see that all I have to do is select the light show or the specific scene that I want to be a part of that scheduled item. In this case, we select the Christmas 2022, and we tell it to repeat. The time frame from this is 6:22 to 9:30 p.m. and it'll just loop that as many times as it can from between those two time periods. And then I want it to repeat that every day. So every night from 6:22 to 9:30, it will play that video projection light show. And it will repeat it until Christmas, 10:15 p.m. That's kind of a bummer, right? Let's push that out a couple days and save that. All right, so with that, this light show is ready to play, and it's automatically going to be pushed out to the projector. So let's head outside and see the results of all this hard work that we put into it. So there you have it. Let's summarize this Luxedo version 2 video projection system. Now, you saw the video. I was super impressed by the punch that Optima video projector at 4200 lumens has on the house. I live in a community that's got ambient lighting, street lights, cars driving by, and it was able to deliver the vibrancy and contrast to really make it shine. You could see it all down the block. It's pretty amazing, and it's exactly what I wanted the V1 to be. Unfortunately, the V1 didn't have all of the punch behind it. It's a little washed out. This one, on the other hand, the Optima projector paired with the waterproof enclosure is a perfect solution to deliver high impact video projection display. And that said, here in Florida, the waterproof enclosure is going to protect that investment. This isn't a cheap project to get into, but it is easy to use, and Luxedo has done their best to make the hardware perfectly easy to use and their software that perfectly dovetail into that. On the downside, the only thing I would say is that their cloud-based sequencer or scene editor, while it's advanced tremendously since last year and there's a lot of additional capability and functionality, I could accomplish most of what I wanted to accomplish, but in some of the advanced layering and filtering and masking were a little complicated and a little glitchy at times, and in some cases required me to step back and rethink how I was going to layer it in a particular design, which left me to resort to using third-party video editing software, which their system's designed to complement. So I don't think they're really competing with video editing software. They know that it's an entry-level editor, and once you grow past the entry-level complexity, that it's time to learn a more advanced video editing system. I don't think they want to compete with Adobe Premiere or Final Cut Pro or anything like that. And if you have those skill sets, then it's certainly a better option for you to create more advanced graphics animations. If you have After Effects experience, then you can hit some home runs with this for sure. That said, for the people that just want to put it on an iPad, make a quick display, send it to the projector, their software is a slam dunk for that. If you have very, very specific needs and you want to export it, you're going to need to know how to use video editing software and offload that complex work in a different tool. That said, I'm extremely happy with this. As a turnkey solution, I would recommend this to anybody that wants to take their display to the next level. And while you could use this with string lights or any other decorations, it really shines great on its own. And all said and done, I probably spent maybe 4 hours on the scenes that I created in Adobe Premiere and a couple hours learning about the configuration options in Luxedo environment. It really wasn't much time at all. If I compare it to, stringing lights on the house and blow ups and blow molds and cutouts and all of that stuff, it's so much more work. And me being a technologist, I love to see this sort of technology that allows me to hot swap and quickly change out the designs or scenes on my display throughout the holiday season. So that's an option now. I don't have to go out there and add new features. I can just upload a new scene, pushes it to the projector, and it's instant gratification in terms of being able to see it and share it with others. So that said, I hope you like this video. Go check out Luxedo. Check out that hardware solution. There's lots of configurable options. If you have your own projector, you can just buy like the Luxcast, and that comes with the subscription to the LuxLink, which is their software. And if you don't have a need for that, you can always just resort to creating your own videos and using their hardware. And they have some great options in terms of their projectors. You can get 3800 lumen, 42, 62, and even higher. They'll collaborate with you to get anything you need. Now, while I'm using this for a holiday display, you could use it for your business or a commercial environment. It certainly is easy for you to cut your teeth on and then grow with. So it supports the option of being able to grow outside of their tools, but still leverage your rendered results in their tools, which is a cool option. So give this a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this random crazy stuff. And by all means, be safe, have fun, and I'll see you next time.
Hey, if you like the video, please subscribe to the channel. It's how we're building the community. Also allow me to bring better content. Also check me out on these other social networks. There's lots of cool stuff there too.